We saw 300 Rise of an Empire. And no, we are not making a This Is Sparta reference.
This is Sparta! This is Sparta! This is Sparta! This is Sparta!
Before I start, because I'm not going to stop, do you two have any opening thoughts?
That was awesome.
Ava Green.
Ava Green, yeah.
Eva Green, yeah. Okay. I'm just going to have to start from the beginning.
You can do this, come on.
Okay, I've said this already today, but I'm going to say it right now for this review. If you've seen 300, and then you saw the trailer for this, and you went to go see this, and you were disappointed because you thought this was going to be a quality, well-written, remembering film, you have no one to blame but yourself. This is just... Actually, you know what? No, this was stupider than I thought it was going to be. I was expecting this to be really dumb. This might be the dumbest film I've seen since After Earth. Granted, it's only been a year, but I'm just...
Including Hercules?
Hercules was really bad, but my gosh, like... Okay, technically, Legend of Hercules is a worse film. It is.
Mm-hmm.
This is more fun than Hercules.
Oh, this was
But you know what? Hercules... I don't know. It was a movie. I mean, this was people in a blue room just, I don't know, doing stuff.
But that was the charm of 300.
Yes, it was the charm.
It was adapted off of a graphic novel.
And this is adapted from that movie, adapted from a graphic novel.
But it's sure the same graphic novel thing.
Doing stuff. That is exactly... Okay.
But I mean,
we're starting from the beginning, and no, I'm not going to have a rating for this because it's 300 Rise of an Empire. So...
I liked it.
I took notes.
Journal Star gave it like a B+.
Really?
You're kidding me.
Really?
Oh my gosh. Well, okay, real quick, we'll compare this to the other movies.
Which other movies?
I'm going to compare it to 300, and I'm going to compare it to Immortals, because Immortals was made by some of the same people, and it shows.
I haven't seen that one yet.
Immortals is a very similar-looking movie.
Is it?
Okay. It actually has Greek gods in it.
Oh, cool.
That's actually kind of cool, but everything else is...
It's actually a decent movie.
Mickey Rourke's the villain.
Oh, good. That's great.
This is much better than Immortals, because Immortals was... It was just trying to be 300. Like, it had some cool ideas, but it's just shamefully almost trying to be too much like 300 and not off of its own entity, and all the things that were cool about 300 that Immortals tried to do, in my opinion, didn't work. Immortals is... Yes, it's stupider than this movie. I'll give it that. It's better than Immortals. It's not as good as the first 300, in my opinion. You know, 300... As a kid, I loved 300. That came out when I was in 8th grade, and I loved it. I watched it a while ago for the first time in years, and I was just like, oh... It is pretty dumb. I like Zack Snyder, by the way, but it's pretty dumb.
The first 300, though, like, compared to this movie, was... at least I was able to, like, follow the linear path that 300 was on. This one was, like, all over the place.
This was insane! Like, that's why I'm saying it's not a
like,
movie.
I knew what was going on in 300. Like, they're there, they're defending, this is what they're doing.
And also, 300 has some build-up to it, because after, like, I mean... You know the 300 are going to go against the Persians, and there is a little bit of action you get before that, but it actually takes a while for that to happen. We see the origin of Leonidas, we see him negotiating with the Persians, we see him talking to the oracles, we see all this stuff happen, and then we finally get the war. In this movie, it wastes no time. 40 seconds in, we see a topless woman, we see a beheading, and then, like, 5 minutes after that, action scene.
No.
It wastes. It's insane.
No.
No structure at all.
But then again, it was. It had a backstory.
Everything was a backstory.
Yes.
We got like 10 backstories in this movie, all of which were not necessary.
I didn't feel lost at all. I felt like...
Well, it wasn't... Well,
the backstory to Ava Green was necessary.
I
Yeah,
guess.
to explain her character.
It explained
why
yeah,
she hated the
sure.
Greeks.
It explained why she hated the Greeks,
I-
and if they didn't have it, she would just be this ridiculously badass person with.
But that's the thing, though. I feel like the
Because-
only reason that backstory was in there is just to make her look tough.
Yeah.
And I guess it worked. No,
Yeah,
I want to point out, I wasn't lost in this movie. Far from it. I think I was about 10 steps ahead of this movie. It's not that I was lost. It's just that as when you look at this as a movie, though, and how a movie is supposed to work, it's just like going off the rails.
Well,
Like this train is just
This movie.
rocketing off the rails.
This movie doesn't read like a movie. It reads like a comic book.
A very imbalanced comic book. The 300 graphic novel it's far from my favorite Frank Miller works. I like a lot of his other stuff more.
But it's
But it is a comic book though, and it has a story to
more
tell.
than a graphic novel.
Well, okay.
There's
a different but still it still follows it tells you a story.
But this one didn't have any comic book or graphic novel thing
Sure.
to base it off of.
Except for the historical accuracy it's kind of following.
Just throw all the historical accuracy out.
Well, yeah, duh.
But it's still, it has the basic readings of a comic book. Well, written,
Sure.
no, but it does follow the
Sure.
basics of a comic book.
Okay.
Let's just start from the beginning.
If I want to say one thing that annoyed me about this movie, like besides all the story and
And
stuff
the
like
3D
that,
effects.
that
Gosh.
made my head hurt, the slow motion
Oh,
Well,
got a little annoying
okay,
after
yeah.
a while.
but you know what? I'm gonna go
it
back
got to the
my.
point where I was
but
like,
you know what?
okay, come
I
on.
refer back to my earlier comment. If you've seen 300
Now-
and you've seen the trailer, you have no one to blame but
But
yourself
no,
for not
no.
like because 300 had a ridiculous amount of slow motion
but
too.
300 slow motion wasn't geared towards 3D.
Yes,
So it worked-
yes, the
so-
3D is distracting.
So the,
yes,
well, so the slow motion with 300 with the original,
yes.
it focused more on what they
the
were
slow
actually
motion
doing.
in that
But in
movie
this one,
was not as bad as the slow motion in this movie.
but
though.
this I couldn't
It might have
stand
been
all
better
of the-
digitalized, which I want to point out. That 300 was made when I was in 8th grade. I'm in college now. CGI has evolved. I'm pretty sure the CGI in this movie is worse than the CGI
It was.
in 300.
That-
It might be
that
because
was
they're
really good.
constant. It might be because in this movie they're constantly in water, so maybe that's why it looks worse. But
The
still,
blood-
the
the
blood.
The blood
Oh
looked
my
like, the blood looked like
gosh!
jelly, but my only thing
It
is,
was
I just,
PlayStation 1 Tekken 3 blood. I mean, this was crazy
It
bad.
made it fun.
It's not as bad as
It was-
Parker, but I mean, my
it was
gosh.
fun though.
No, it was funny.
It was fun.
funny. I was
I liked
I was laughing at the movie more than I was with it. But we'll get to that in a moment.
I
So
was,
let's
I
just
was entertained by it.
so let's get into the movie. So it opens up with that scene from the trailer where we see the 300, they are fallen, and we see digital-faced Gerard Butler dead, and Zersky's beheads him, and then he immediately cuts to a topless woman because we need that, apparently.
That's rape and pillage. That's
Sebastian,
the topless
Sebastian, let
thing.
him talk.
Well,
Just-
my
just
focus
let me
on the
just-
topless thing. It's rape and pillage. It happens.
But with that said, I'm not bashing you. I'm bashing the movie. But with that said, the first 10-20 minutes is just kind of backstory. It's backstory. It kind of shows you. It kind of rewinds pretty much back to the timeline that 300 starts with before the Persians invade, and it shows the other civilizations in Greece, their conflicts with the Persians. And
I would have liked to see more on Marathon. That would have been. I mean, they really Marathon was a little bit bigger of a conflict than what they showed it as.
well, yeah. But if it was a more competent movie, we might have. But we get a little bit more backstory of Xerxes. I'm gonna mispronounce that name every time.
Xerxes.
And what's the main character's name again? The main character of this movie. It's a
Theocles.
what?
Theocles.
Theocles.
Theocles, yes.
Which I think that was actually a person, wasn't
No,
it?
it was.
Yeah.
It was.
I'm
No,
still.
that's right.
It was
That
okay.
was the leader of the
Okay.
during the
So
battle.
that's our center character.
Okay.
The differences between him and Butler as Leonidas, he's a little less shouty, and he wears a blue cape, and that's the
That's
difference.
the color.
I know. I'm just saying that's the differences. as a movie perspective.
Okay.
That's the difference between the two. And so, and he's not married.
He didn't have a pointy beard either.
He didn't have the pointy goatee.
I love the
He still had a
pointy
beard,
That
though.
thing was so awesome.
So, as far as like elements of 300 goes, the homoeroticism is still there. Although it's not quite as high as 300. And for a while I was like, this isn't too homoerotic. But then there's one line that he said right before the big sex scene, which we'll get to later, that kind of raised it up because like the main villain, who's actually a female, Ava Green.
Ava Green.
Yeah, who I like to say she actually is pretty good as the villain. She kind of rocked that role. You could tell like
she was in Casino Royale.
Yes,
She
yes,
was
she was best. Yeah, she was the woman. Yeah, I recognized her. She's basically seducing him at one point, and she's like, I think she asked him like, do you have a wife or blah blah blah, and he's like, no, I've spent all my life loyal to defending Greece, blah, blah, blah. And then he says, but my one true love is my Navy, or something like that. And I was like, okay, that was a little gay. I'm sorry, that sounded a little gay. But anyways, do you know who the actor is that plays him, by the way?
No, but
he looked really familiar.
He looked really familiar. He was one of those guys.
Yeah, he was that guy that like you've seen him before.
He's
pretty good as the lead. He's a likable lead.
I like
In all kidding aside, he's a pretty
I
likable
like
lead.
Lena Headey again in this movie too.
She was great.
She was good as Queen Grogu.
She's good in everything. I mean, The Purge.
I love
Her character in The Purge was so useless, but she was fun. She did a good job in that, considering how bad her character was written. But so she's in it, and actually she's the one that's narrating. Gorgo, isn't that her character's name? Yeah, Gorgo is basically narrating throughout the whole movie.
Sullivan Stapleton.
No.
What other stuff was he in?
Look it up.
So just give me a second, so we'll get talking. So honestly, this formula, I mean, I know I was saying that it's a lot less structured than 300 is, and it is. I stand by that statement. But when you actually look at it, it is kind of almost the same movie in the sense that like it's a small group of Greeks going up against the Persians battle after battle. And not only that, you have a lot of the same elements in there too as the father-son relationship. Only this time it's the exact opposite.
I noticed
in
that.
This one, in this one we get an experienced warrior whose inexperienced son joins the army to defend Greece. And, the father is skeptic about him, just like in 300. And then, like in 300, the father approves of him right before one of them dies. In 300, the son dies. In this one, it's the father. But I want to point something out, though, that kind of made me laugh about that scene. Because the father, in 300...
when he dies or when he gets shot?
When he gets shot. Because it actually takes, in this one, it takes the father a while to die. But he gets shot a couple times with arrows. And so he's kind of like laying back, and the son is like holding him. And the father basically says like, win this battle, avenge me, defend your homeland. But as he's doing this, I don't know if you guys know this, he had crazy eyes the whole time. He's like, son, avenge me. I just thought it was kind of funny.
Mike, I'd like to see your eyes if you get shot with a few arrows.
It was just...
Dude, okay. Boromir's eyes were not like that, okay? He got shot 3 times by an Orakai, okay? I don't know what you're talking about.
But I will say this. They did do a good job with the arrow effect, too.
I guess.
I could believe that he got shot with an arrow. I mean,
yeah.
Minus the fact that they wouldn't actually shoot someone with an arrow. This isn't Ben-Hur.
Okay, so another thing I want to point out is that
shoot someone across.
Remember, she's a
waves.
Okay, let's get back on topic. So something I want to point out is that about halfway in the movie, that battle, the battle where the father gets shot at, that's the critical battle, the one where our protagonists lose a lot of men and they're kind of, the battle is lost and it's like, oh man, we're not going to win this war after all. That kind of slump in the middle of your war film. And in that battle, it ends with our hero's ship getting blown up, and so everyone's underwater. What the crap were those fishes?
I think that was a personification of his guilt of his men dying. Because
he woke up
on the beach.
They weren't
actually. I don't think they were actually.
There's some fish, some really poorly CGI'd fish that we see them
They were-
underwater and they're like eating up all
They were
all the soldiers.
They were Poseidon's. They were creatures of Poseidon.
I thought they were.
They looked really silly. I'm just saying.
Okay, in the movie, they were actual creatures in Greek mythology.
Okay.
I thought
Because I thought it was like the fish from episode 1. It kind of reminded me of
There's
that.
always a bigger fish.
There's always a bigger fish, and
I
they had like golden
Get off my
eyes.
But I thought they were more of a
Symbolism.
personification of his guilt, because there's no way in hell getting blown off the
If
ship
that's
wouldn't
the
have
case-
a giant concussion.
If that's the case, then they picked the wrong freaking time to try to get deep. After they had that sex scene,
Yeah.
they picked the wrong. It was too
That's
late
just
to
what
try
I
to
got,
get.
because
Sure.
he woke up and was startled on the beach.
You know, I gotta be honest though. Like before he woke up, I thought it was serious. Like I thought that they were actually like eating.
That's
I
what I
was
thought.
like,
okay.
what the hell is going on?
It was
okay,
so
it's a dream.
random. So most people that are going into this, they just want to watch the action scenes.
Hells yeah.
It's been a while. We've been talking about this movie for a while. We
That's
haven't even talked
why
about the
I went
action.
into it, and that's
Well,
what
sure.
I got out of it.
So,
Yeah, I was
so
here
the question
to
is:
still.
is the action good?
Yes.
300 standards, yeah. It's fun. It's dumb fun. Horrible CGI nonstop. Lots of slow mo.
Well choreographed.
It is what it-
though. It was well choreographed.
Sure, yeah. I mean, I'll take honestly.
If you want body count, you'll get body count.
Yes, I will give the movie this. I prefer in action movies today, if I have to choose between over the top slow mo and lots of just dragging the camera. If I have to take that kind of 300 style violence over shaky cam, then I'll take the 300 violence any day of the week.
They did kind of do the shit. They did a little bit of like a shaky cam when they were doing the Battle of Marathon, when they were part of that shock troop.
I guess a little
fight.
bit. I mean,
I liked that though, because
I
that's
didn't
what
really
you would see
notice.
if you were running with them. And
sure.
you'd be like, what the hell's going on?
I didn't
Shit,
really
whoa.
notice. I will say some of the action, despite a lot of the slow mo, some of the action was kind of hard to follow. But it didn't ruin the film though by any means. It was just
one thing that I will say about the action that is a 300 thing, a lot of overkill.
Yeah.
A lot of like, this guy's already been stabbed 5 times. Might as well cut his head off.
with
Well,
Might as
oodles
well
of CGI
slice
on
his
his leg.
neck.
Make sure. I mean, humans are pretty resilient. Make sure they're dead.
I like too how like
the
in
Immortals were way more badass.
I
than
like how in the first act of the film, I like how like in the first like 30 minutes of the movie when they're kind of giving a little bit of backstory and they're kind of doing more dialogue than action. I like how, with the exception of the opening where we see digitalized Gerard Butler get beheaded, with the exception of that, I like how the movie tries so hard to connect itself to 300, but it's painfully obvious that they couldn't get Gerard Butler to reprise his role as Leonidas for the prequel scenes, so they went out of their way to like explain where he is every time there's a prequel with the Spartans. I'd be like, oh well, Leonidas would be here, but he's over there somewhere. like
Yeah.
they clearly just like,
Or like-
oh crap, we couldn't get
the
Leonidas. So
lead character just happens to go to Sparta when Leonidas is
exactly,
with the Oracle.
it's like, well, you would see Leonidas, but he's with the oracles. I'm like, ooh, that's convenient because we couldn't get Gerard Butler to reprise his
I don't know
role.
why you wouldn't
Yeah, which
make
I-
a shit of money.
and totally just be ridiculous.
He's too busy filming the new Olympus Has Fallen. They are making a new Olympus Has Fallen. I don't know if Gerard Butler's going to be
How
in
did they
it.
even do that?
But I think it's going to take place in London.
What?
Whatever. Just
So,
just
anyways,
stop it.
All right. Well, so yes, the violence. If you liked the violence in 300, you'll like the action in this. I think they kind of doubled up the blood. They kind of double up like the amputations and stuff, which is what fans of 300 want. You know that most people are watching this for the violence. They're certainly not watching it for the historical accuracy.
I like the shit battles. Those were pretty well done. Even though it was all...
Yeah, it was kind
Even
of
though it's all
I
CGI,
will
fun.
say, the ship combat of that time, they did the ramming right.
sure, but I didn't like hate
But
the
Greece-
ship battles.
Greece had
To
fun
me,
battles.
the ship battles were very repetitive. Though it was just
What do you
rammed
think
out.
ship battles were?
Well, I know, but I'm just saying, as I'm not I'm criticizing it as a movie though. I'm just saying.
And the battles weren't repetitive in the first 300. It was hey, let's make a line. They're gonna smash against his head.
Yes.
Smash against his head.
The difference though, here's the difference though, and I'm not going out of my way to defend 300 that much, but the difference too is that in a lot of the battles for 300, they often faced different villains, different types of Persian soldiers. Like there's one where they're facing the ones with the metal masks, and then there's one where they're using like the magicians. So like they had a bit of uniqueness in each battle with that at least. Where in this one it was just ship battle after ship battle.
Which is what sea warfare was.
Yes, and I know, I get it. I'm just saying, as an action movie, it's best to try to give each action scene something unique and different from the other one, so that they're memorable and they don't get repetitive or boring. That's all I'm saying.
I would have liked to have seen more with the amphibious assault squad with the bombs on their backs. That was
kind of cool.
And
I mean, it was silly, but it was
I would have
kind
liked
of
to have
cool.
seen more amphibious assault squads, and then the Immortals in this movie were so much better than the Immortals in the other movie. In the first 300
Yes,
movie.
they were actually deadly.
And they changed their character design.
Well,
They
they
were
were
way
deadly.
bigger,
They
their mask
were
was
deadly
different.
until the main character got there. And
Well,
he
exactly.
single-handedly kicked their
Destroyed all
crap.
of them. But before that, they were really awesome.
Yeah.
Like, people just bouncing off.
So there's battle after battle. The first couple battles, the good guys are winning, and then the next, but they're losing more and more men, and then. I'll give the movie credit. I knew there was going to be unnecessary nudity in this movie. I didn't see this coming. Eva Green, the lead villain, Xerxes is kind of barely in this movie when you think about it. Like he's in the beginning a lot, but once the battles start, he's kind of just out of the picture. He really is.
He's fighting the Spartans.
I know. I'm just saying. Eva Green is more the center villain. So Eva Green invites our lead hero over to negotiate.
To recruit him.
Over to
Yeah. So he's like, okay, I'll talk to her. So they go into her ship.
And he goes alone.
Yeah, and he goes alone, unarmed. And gosh, that sounds stupid. What could go wrong? And so at first, and of course, she's wearing this very seductive outfit.
Awesome.
And I'm like, wait. Is she gonna try to seduce him? And so they're talking about
You
stuff.
knew that was gonna happen.
I mean, I knew it was gonna happen.
I knew as soon as he got on that ship.
I knew it was gonna
he was gonna
happen.
bone her.
Here's the thing. I knew that she was going to try to. I didn't know it was going to go as far as it did.
Okay, think about it in an overly deep way that they weren't thinking about it at all. She asked if he had any God in him.
Just
More
let me
than
continue.
anything.
Give us a second.
Just give me a second to continue. They don't. If they may not know what's going on. So they go into the ship. They start talking about the war and stuff. And then as she's talking, she's loosening her clothes more. And then he's like, wait.
When
She puts her legs up and
like,
yeah. So he's like, so you want me to surrender? And she's like, no, I want you to join us. You're a good leader. You're a good fighter.
Fair enough.
You're very brave. I want you to join us. So she's basically saying, betray your country and just join us. We just want you. And so he's, of course, like, no, screw that. And then she is kind of basically seducing him.
And she's like right up in his face.
Yeah, she is like talking lips to lips, but she is still talking. It's kind of goofy looking. And so, by the way, the audience that we were seeing this with was laughing the whole time. And so he embraces her. He can't hold it back.
Well, she undid his
undid his cape. Yeah. So they start. Okay, so they start kissing, and they start kissing, and they start having sex. But here's the thing: this is without doubt. This is if we're talking strictly consensual sex, not like a rape scene. If we are talking consensual sex, it is the most suspenseful sex scene I've ever seen in a mainstream movie. They were playing like action music while this was happening, like dun 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 dun.
They were
and
half fighting, half.
They were kind of like fetish hardcore going at it, like they're choking each other. He rips off her top and she exposes herself, and he like throws her onto the table, and they're not moaning. They are yelling. I can't do justice. It is one of the most bizarre sex scenes I have seen in a mainstream movie, and it was hilarious.
And the absolutely necessary cutaway to the guards.
Yeah,
that part.
Halfway through, it cuts away to the guards outside, and they're
Hearing
hearing
this
them two just banging up against the wall, yelling, and they're both just like.
Except they're wearing the immortal masks.
Yeah,
they
exactly.
have no facial expression.
Exactly. So we don't even know
So
like
you
what
know
they're
what
they're
thinking.
thinking, though.
You know
And-
what they're thinking, but
So this happens for a while, and then they just stop for a moment, and she's like, join me. He's just like,
nope.
and he just leaves. He just leaves, and she is furious.
She lets him
like,
go.
so basically, let's root over what happened. So she brought him over because she wanted him to join them, and instead he got free sex from his enemy and got to leave. No harm done.
Yeah.
All it did was just make her more mad.
Yeah.
And that was the scene.
Yeah.
And again, I like to point out the audience we were with was having a blast seeing this.
I am glad we had a fun audience.
So we get some more action scenes, and we're gonna lose. We better. By this point, by this point, I'm just got a burp. By this point in the movie, it's basically right on par with the end of 300. By this point, so by this point, Leonidas has fallen with the 300, and so our hero, our lead, goes to Gorgo, who's mourning, and he's like, help us, get the rest of your Spartan army and help us. Of course. At first, she's like, no, and we know they're going to come back at the end, and they do.
Well, he
gave her Leonidas' sword. The Hunchback comes back for a little bit. That was random.
Surprising.
Again, they were trying so hard to make this like connected without having Gerard Butler in the movie.
They had what's his name, Faramir.
They had the guy that lost his eye. The original narrator, yeah, he's in there too. He's in there for quite a bit actually, and it was nice to see him again. So then we get the final battle, and it's this super epic battle, and then our lead is like, he's like, okay, boats everywhere, people dying everywhere, water, waves. What could I do? I know. I'm gonna get on a horse and go boat to boat, slaughtering everybody. What could possibly go wrong in this scenario? And then he's like, oh crap, Eva Green's over at that boat and she's fighting. I gotta have my epic battle with her. I know, I'm gonna send this horse through this boat that's on fire to get to that boat. Yeah. What could possibly go wrong?
Killing people while he's going across this boat.
So stupid. I mean, it was funny, don't get me wrong. It was entertaining, but it was so stupid. And so he basically takes on Eva Green's bodyguards completely by himself.
The Immortals.
Massacres, the Immortals.
The Immortals that
massacres
were throwing
them.
people like they were nothing.
The Immortals that had just killed like 30 Greek
Yeah,
men,
like they can't stand match to this guy. And so he and Eva Green have a battle, and then they stop for a moment. Oh, and she makes a really stupid reference to them having sex. A really weird off-place joke put in the middle of the fight.
I
And
must have zoned that part out.
You don't remember that?
Nope.
She said, at least you fight harder.
You fight. Yeah, that's right. Okay, I remember now.
and so they have their fight, and then like it ends with both of them having their blades up against each other, and they're kind of waiting, and she's like, you can still join me, and he's like, I'd rather die as a free man than live as a slave. And then of course,
He's not wrong.
and then of course the Spartans then come in to
with Gorgo at the lead.
with Gorgo,
Hell yeah.
with Gorgo as the lead,
Yes.
using Leonidas'
the Black
sword.
Slayer.
So our hero kills Eva Green, and Xerxes is like looking over all this, and he's like, screw this. And he just like leaves. He's like, oh, this is stupid. So he just turns around and leaves. Again, he's barely in this movie. And
well, it's more focused on.
I know. I'm just saying.
Well, and at this point, the God King is already bled and is no longer a god. He's basically useless anyways.
I know.
So
he's just, he kind of just spends the whole movie just pouting. Like he's just mad throughout the whole film.
Yeah, I mean,
and so
he was never. It was showing that he was never anything to be
Sebastian, I don't think they thought about it.
Well, shut up, I am.
So-
Well, I am.
so-
What you gonna do about it?
the movie literally just cuts out pretty much the same way the last one. It just cuts out with like the Spartans have reunited with our hero, and we see a little bit of Gorgo fighting, and then it
Gorgo
just goes.
kicking ass.
Yeah, and it was pretty awesome.
And we couldn't get that throughout the whole movie
Because
That's why. Suspense. I don't know.
because art. So
Now, I will say this. A lot of people complained about how built the Spartans were in 300. And I noticed that there were a lot more real body types with the Athenians in this movie. And then the Spartans, when they came in, were again much more muscular. And that actually made it make more sense because you're well-trained military.
I'm going to
unit is
agree
going
with
to
you on
see-
that, but I'm also going to point this out, though. One thing that they did that I thought was worse, though, was whenever they copied somebody, like in the background.
Okay.
Like if they took like a few few actors, and then they digitally like copied them so it looks like they're bigger, that looked worse in my opinion. For example, the best example I can think of is when early in the film when our lead visits Sparta, and we see the Spartans like training, and by that just beating each other to a pulp.
That was
In the background, you can see Spartans like doing training with their shields.
Mhm.
I don't know. Maybe it's because of how the shields looked. That just looked really bad.
Yeah.
Like really.
I'm just-
Even for 300 CGI, that just looked really bad.
Yeah.
And so the movie ends. Like it ends mid-battle, and it's like, well, who needs a resolution?
Well, like
And-
a big army over here and a big army over here.
Yeah,
like,
it's
coming at
it's
each
a
other.
very safe way to end the film. And then the movie goes to credits and plays freaking War
It
Pigs
was
by
awesome.
Black Sabbath.
I loved that.
Holy
That was
crap.
awesome.
No more war pigs have the
War Pigs by Black Sabbath.
I liked that.
My
That was
gosh.
It was
It-
not.
it
was
totally-
not. It was out of place.
It totally
No,
took
it
me out of the...
wasn't.
I mean, I can't say it took me... I wasn't in the movie, but like I wasn't into the movie. But like, it totally... For
I
anybody...
knew it's
It would...
target.
I Austin
It
said
was
this.
target.
It's completely out of place.
Especially
Especially...
the song. Okay,
Yeah,
It's
the
a good
song is great,
but
but-
it was
but
not out
look,
of place. Then.
I went into that movie to be entertained, and I like that song. And
Especially
that
if
song
you,
entertained me.
especially if you like compare what the meaning of that song is to what's going
Yeah.
on. I mean, they're using it just as it's a war song. It's more about like governments going into World War III, end of times, biblical end of times. I might add,
I know what
used
the
in a
song's
Greek
about.
war film.
I know what the song's about.
I'm just saying. I think that's kind of funny.
It's just, it's all entertainment, and I was
Sure.
entertained. So,
Okay.
mission accomplished.
Okay, so, oh my gosh. Okay, so
I like
you like the movie, yeah?
I like it.
Would you recommend it?
Okay. Now, let me say this. It was not good.
Yeah.
But I was entertained, and
Sure.
mission accomplished. All I wanted to be was entertained.
Would you
by
say that you were entertained by the movie's intention?
What do you mean by the movie's intention?
If the movie's intention
Was to entertain me?
was just to give you a fun entertain, like did
Mission
you
accomplished.
enjoy it in the same way that you enjoyed 300?
Yeah.
Okay. What do you think?
If you want chest bumping, battle screaming,
Testosterone.
testosterone pumping action, this is the movie
Okay.
for you.
I completely agree. I want to say, again, you know what you're getting yourself into.
Exactly.
But with that said, it is even
Which really
even
goes along with
as
what I said before.
even as a 300 sequel, I still find this movie, and I'm not shocked. I'm just saying. Keep in mind, this movie is still more stupid than the first one. And the first one, as we've already pointed out, is pretty dumb, as you probably already know. So just, I mean, yeah. If you're just, I guess I don't know where I'm going with that.
The only disappointing thing is they didn't have a good chant like the first one did.
That's true. We
The
didn't
first one had a great chant.
That's true.
And you could just...
I mean, our characters
the-
weren't.
Ooh!
They
Well,
carry-
when he went to Sparta.
Yeah, we
for
hear
the
that
first
for like
time,
a
that's
second.
why
Yeah,
he
but
did that.
they didn't have their own... you know,
Again, I would say 300 is better.
I would
Is
say
a
300
generally
is
better
Spartans.
film.
Spartans.
Again, this, my gosh, the gore was so bad. But
Uh,
as a dumb fun
If
movie,
it had more practical
you
effects
know,
versus CGI.
you know, for me, like I understand that you've seen a lot of movies like that
Sure.
and stuff. For me, it was realistic.
I understand.
Because, I mean, for like just a normal
Sure.
person going to these movies, they'll find it realistic.
I guess the point I'm trying to get across is that for me, it's like 300 was trying to adapt the comic and be like kind of this gloriously stupid action film almost. Like, it's almost prideful of how stupid it is.
Some of the
This, I felt, was some of that, but at the same time very unintentionally stupid at times. I thought there was way more unintentional stupidity in this movie than the first one
The whole
did.
3D effect.
The 3D was really painfully well, not painful, but it was very obviously like there at times. It's really distracting.
Like the part when
things just go out in your face.
When he first goes to Sparta and those people are fighting.
Yes.
And he uppercuts that one guy and the blood goes. Woo!
That, but even when
more blood soaked.
but even when the movie is trying to have like a moment though, like. Because even 300, I thought 300 does have some good dramatic moments in it, as silly as the movie is. I think the climax with Leonidas, like, kneeling before Xerxes, I thought that was well done. I thought Gorgo in general was a well-dramatized character.
Yes.
It could be just because the actress is so good
when
at
the father loses his son and just
I thought when the
goes
father...
berserk.
I mean,
man.
the kid getting beheaded was kind of funny, but I thought that was a well-done moment, too.
I thought it was funny in that one part, like, he gets beheaded and he falls down, and I always notice this, like, he hits the ground and you can see his muscles rippling. But
okay. That's the thing, though, is that 300 still has some genuine moments in it. This movie, like, even when it's trying to have those few moments and not trying to just be a dumb, fun movie, even then, at times, I was still like, this is so stupid.
Its pacing wasn't right.
Yes.
To have serious moments.
It has a much more loose structure.
If it cut all of that out and just had bad
one thing I noticed, there was a lot of like heroic speeches.
Yeah, they doubled up the speeches.
Yeah,
oh my gosh.
Almost before like every
oh
battle,
my gosh.
He's like making a heroic
speech. It's all
poets.
trailer dialogue.
Shut up.
The whole thing is trailer dialogue, like stuff that you would hear. I will attack the Greeks. I would rather die free than live as a slave. All that stuff.
And I'm sure that's sad. But...
Yeah. Final thoughts. This is exactly what it marketed itself to be.
Yeah. It made no false impressions.
Again, I would say this is way crazier and way dumber than 300. And I know it sounds like I'm hating this movie. This movie was fun.
Oh, I loved it.
But my gosh, was it unintentionally stupid at times, while also being intentionally stupid, which is a weird combination. So as far as trailers go, it's the only trailers that I saw that I hadn't seen before, or that I hadn't seen in a theater before, was the new Sin City trailer, which looks awesome. I want to point out when the trailer, it's a great trailer. When the trailer's over and then it cuts the title and it says Sin City, a dame to kill for, and then cuts out some guy in the audience who's just like, damn. And we saw the Godzilla trailer, which looks awesome.
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 One other thing with the audience that I want to point out, I forgot to bring this up, and this was hilarious. In the final fight between Eva Green and Eva, is it Eva Green? I'm sorry, Eva Green.
EVA.
Okay, Eva Green, sorry. In the final fight between Eva Green and our protagonist, they're sword fighting, blah, 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 and then at one point, with a free hand, our lead punches her in the face in slow motion. And when that happened, I asked Austin, he said he didn't hear this. Did you notice there was some guy in the crowd that applauded when that happened?
No, I missed that.
And this guy was just, yay! Put that in her place, man. Show her who's the boss. Yeah.
I
laughed so hard. I was like, oh my gosh.
I know.
This crowd was awesome.
This crowd was awesome. We weren't the only ones making noise, talking to each other.
Oh my goch, everyone was talking. Yeah, I
appreciate
my
that.
rule on talking in the theater is
only if everybody else is doing it.
Well, yeah, if you can, if it's a really like bad movie, and you know it's a bad movie, your friends know it, and everyone in the theater knows it, it's fair game. Like that's like if you see people in the theater kind of laughing at stuff that they're not supposed to be laughing at. Like when you and I saw Hercules, and the girls that were in our row were laughing too. It's like, to me, they clearly don't care if we talk because they know this is stupid.
Yeah.
It's fair game. Now, if we're watching something like 12 Years a Slave or Gravity, no, I don't want people talking in the theater. I'm not going to be talking in the theater. But if it's, After Earth, Legend of Hercules, 300 Rise of an Empire, you know what? It's fair game. Go Mystery Science Theater on it.
Yeah. Oh man.
But I am looking forward to the riff tracks for this. So
The what now?
It's a Mystery Science 3000.
I'll explain to you afterwards what that is. That's. I know that this review really did not have to be that long, but I just wanted to talk about everything. So, any final thoughts?
Evergreen.
What?
Evergreen.
This is Sparta! This is Sparta! This is